Hello, Falcons fans, NFL fans. Welcome to Jocks and Pigskins on Atlanta Sports Unlimited. And this is Tom Pollen sitting in, running the show solo again. Dave Holcomb, you can't really say he's on maternity leave. That isn't, I don't know, that doesn't sound right. Paternity leave? Either way, Dave is still out because of the birth of his son, Thomas Gabriel. So send your best wishes Dave's way. Family's doing great. So, but he's going to be out for a little bit while they get used to parenthood. Dave's first attempt at it. And it's going to be interesting, but I know he and Shannon are going to make great parents, and we will have Dave back pretty soon when he gets things settled on the home front. So before we get into the show today, and we're going to talk about some of the bumps that the Falcons have run into this last week on their way to the 2023 season. And all teams run into those bumps. It's not a new thing. But the Falcons have taken a couple of hits over the past week, and I want to talk about those. And maybe a little bit later, near the end of the show, we'll talk about Dalvin Cook, who was released by the Minnesota Vikings. And it's amazing how these top-tier players are getting released early in the offseason this year. Looking at DeAndre Hopkins by the Arizona Cardinals and now Dalvin Cook. But before we get into today's show, let's say we are sponsored by Prize Picks. So if you go to Prize Picks and download the Prize Picks app on your phone or go to Prize Picks on your desktop, and your first $100 deposit is matched 100% by Prize Picks. So deposit $100 and you have $200 to make player props and go at it that way. So use the promo code ASU because, we need all the show support we can get. So please use the promo code ASU and sign up for Prize Picks. There's still, we don't have NFL season yet, but there's still plenty to go. If you're a USFL fan, if you've been following that league, you can make player props on that. We still have the NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, both finals. So those are available to you. And, here's Zozo. We got Zozo too. And, we do have some props going on the NFL season. As far as what Prize Picks thinks is a good prop for the NFL season. And I'm going to give you one. I gave you Desmond Ridder last week. I'm going to give you another one this week that Prize Picks has with a Falcon slant. Bijan Robinson. They project to have 1,075.5 yards rushing in the 2023 season. What do you think? Now, Tyler Algier had 1,000 yards rushing last year, which I thought was maybe even a little bit unlikely, considering that he didn't really start as the focus back for the Falcons, but did a great job moving forward. So let's see. Bijan Robinson, will he be a 1,000-yard rusher here in 2023? Prize Pick says 1,075.5. Sign up, go above, or go lower. And we'll go from there. And let me know what you think. What do you think, Bijan Robinson? We go higher or lower? So, if you want to chime in during the show, I'm always with you. Pantera's on, Tom. All right. So always good to see you, Pantera. Glad you're on. As I say, we got Zozo here. Zozo's going to co-host the show with me today. But let's go into some of the things that have happened with the Falcons this season or this past week. And a rough one, probably a little bit tougher than what it sounds like at first, is the issue with Avery Williams, who apparently a week ago Friday at that open OTAs that the Falcons had at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, tore his ACL and is going to be out for the season. And it's a rough thing for the Falcons because not necessarily because of his impact at running back, because he really wasn't going to have a big impact at running back this season, especially with Bijan Robinson now coming into the mix. But Avery Williams turned into a very good punt returner last year. And the Falcons are really going to miss him there. And it's not easy to find a guy who can return punts for you and be reliable at it. Now, last year, Avery Williams, he averaged 16.2 yards per punt return last season. And that was the best yards per return average in the NFL. So being able to do that, it's not an easy thing. And that's why it's going to make a big impact on the squad. Basically, what Williams got for you was an extra first down before your offense even came on the field. All right, 16.2 yards, that it makes an impact. A punt returner flips the field for you if he's doing his job right. If you have a good one, a good punt returner will flip the field. You can, field a punt back at your 10-yard line. And if you can get the ball back out to the 20, all of a sudden your offense isn't in a hole. Your offense can start operating the way it normally does. You don't have to make allowances for the fact that you're backed up to your goal line. It's not an easy job anyway, because you have to figure out, you can train on a jugs gun all day, catching simulated punts. And teams do that. They work very hard on simulating punts, using the jugs and, getting the ball high in the air. However, the ball coming off a kicker's foot comes off a foot a lot differently than it will a jugs gun. And it's tough to judge. If you haven't been back there and haven't looked up in the sky and looked for a punt, and I've done it, and reason why I'm sitting here and not as a retired NFL player is because it's not an easy thing to do. Because I tried it. It's not an easy thing to judge the ball the way it comes off of punter's foot, because it comes off in a spiral. It will come down sort of, wobbling type spiral. It's not an easy catch. The other thing is, you got two gunners coming at you full speed down the field, and their intent is to separate you from the football. And you have to be able to have enough nerve to come down with football with those guys. Those guys are barreling down the field at you. And that's going to be in the back of your mind. And if you haven't done it before, that's a difficult thing. So, you get a chance to take a sneak peek down the field to see how your blocking set up, see where the gunners are coming from. Then you have to make the catch. probably make someone miss because one of these guys, one of these gunners is going to be on you right away. So if you can make him miss, then you can start using your blocking and coming back upfield. So think about all the things that go into trying to return a punt. It's amazing. Every time I watch these guys do it on Sundays, I'm amazed by the fact that they are able to make a judgment on where the ball is coming down, catch the ball, know where his blocking is, know where the coverage team is, and still make an effective punt. Even on fair catches, did you see these guys on fair catches where they got an opposing player who's 2 feet away from him and just trying to get, make the punt returner know that he is in front of him and ready to take advantage of any mistakes? It's a lot of pressure. Avery Williams did that very well last year. Did that, as I say, didn't do a lot of punt returns. Because let's face it, the Atlanta defense didn't force a lot of punts. However, when he got the opportunities, he did a great job at it. And again, this is a secret weapon of your offense, is if a guy can take the ball back at least 10 yards, steal a first down. 10 yards that your offense doesn't have to get. Steal that first down. If you can do that, you are well on your way to have an effective offense. So it's a rough thing to lose out Williams. And losing him on kickoff returns isn't as impactful. Cordero Patterson has done kickoff returns. Very good. Excellent at kickoff returns. And you can always plug Patterson back there to do kickoff returns. However, Patterson doesn't do punt returns because it is such a different thing. It's a different skill set. So that's why you need somebody who is steady, doesn't get rattled by people running up, knowing that people are running up on him, and can do that job. So Williams had 7.7 yards per return, which is actually still pretty good for the NFL. In 2021. But again, that's 16.2 yards per return. That's going to be tough to make up. Now, from what I've been seeing, what I've been reading, the Falcons, there are some potential replacements. Looking at cornerbacks Mike Hughes and Dee Alford, and receivers Josh Ali and Penny Hart as potential punt returners for the Falcons. The only problem with a few of those names, 3 of those names, is that in 3 seasons with Seattle, Hart never returned a punt. Never had to go back and do it. Josh Ali only played 2 games for the Falcons in 2022, did not return punts. Probably did some work in the camp, during the week, and during the preseason, catching punts, but did not do it during the season. Dee Alford has never done it. So the only person on that list that I've seen as prospective punt returners for the Falcons is Mike Hughes. Did it 2 years in Minnesota, 2018, 2019. Did it for the Chiefs in 2021. So at least Hughes can do it. But the Falcons are expecting Hughes to make a difference in their cornerback group next season. So if you're putting him in as a punt returner too, you are taking a chance that, of injury. As I say, it's a highly difficult job, and it's a tough thing to do and stay healthy at doing. So do you take that chance that Hughes is going to be able to do the job and stay healthy enough to be an impact punt returner for the team? And as I say, you want somebody with experience, which is why I just have no faith in I need to see Penny Hart, Josh Ali, and Dee Alford actually do the job. Because, as I just said, catching the punt is difficult enough. Doing the other parts of the job, that's another thing. Plus, you have to make a split-second decision whether you're going to return the ball or make a fair catch, which, again, that takes a lot of time to learn that kind of judgment. Do you think you can make the first man miss? Or are you better off just, stopping, the play there, taking the fair catch, and, live to try again later in the game? It's a lot of decision making. It's tough to be a good punt returner in the NFL. And to me, good punt returners help your offense. So if you don't have one, you need to find one. And the Falcons had one, and it's going to be worrying on who's going to do the job going forward. So we will see during training camp. We will see during the preseason. I'm sure a lot of people, those four, Hart, Ali, Alford, and Hughes, are going to get their shots at it. I looked through the roster. I looked through a couple of the undrafted free agents who I think also could be possibilities. And if you want to make the final roster, a couple of these might be somebody you look at. And Pantera has chimed in. Frank Darby should learn to return punts to stick on the team. Why not? I would say Frank Darby, go ahead. Try him out. Right now, you're at a point where you need to try anybody out to see if they can do this job. But as I say, I was looking at the roster as it stands right now, and a couple of undrafted free agents have actually returned punts in college. And I think we're going to get a chance to see some of them do punt returns for the Falcons in training camp and during the preseason. Wide receiver Slade Bolden returned punts for 3 seasons at Alabama. So, again, undrafted free agent. If you want to be an undrafted free agent, Wallace Smith. No, Darby is not a punt returner. Okay. I'm not as up to what Darby can do as far as that thing, but Wallace, I'm going to take your opinion on that. But as I say, wide receiver Slade Bolden returned punts 3 seasons at Alabama. So here's a guy who's done it in college. How good? He did have some decent stats in college as a punt returner. So I think you're going to see Slade Bolden get a few chances to be a punt return specialist for the Falcons this year. Again, wide receiver, if he makes a sweat as a punt returner, you got an extra wide receiver on the bench too. And again, great for your roster. And a great way for an undrafted free agent to make the team. You also have defensive back Natrone Brooks out of Southern Mississippi. Only did it 1 season, did it his sophomore year at Southern Mississippi. But again, he did it. He has the experience of looking up and knowing that, again, that pressure situation where you got gunners coming at you, and he's looked up in the air and caught these things, and it's, seen the ball come off a real live foot. He's not seeing the ball coming off the jugs gun, which is where everybody else is going to be at the start of training camp. Guys who have caught simulated punts, but nobody who's actually caught the real thing, the real deal. And to me, that makes a huge difference. Again, I keep saying that, but that's because I keep wanting to emphasize that. Not an easy thing. So look for, put these names on your list heading into training camp. 2 guys who could be effective as punt returners, Slade Bolden and Natrone Brooks. So I think we've pretty much covered the punt return situation. Another interesting bump in the road for the Falcons. What do you think, Zozo? Oh, yes. So let me get the cat out of the way so I can talk again. The case of Breon Borders. Monday, the Falcons signed NFL journeyman cornerback Breon Borders and released Canadian Football League star Jamal Peters. So Borders has spent 6 seasons bouncing from team to team, has played 32 games with 6 starts, and he has 1 interception in his career. He had a reputation as a ball hawk coming out of college, and would stop there and go to a Wallace Smith comment. I think Penny Hart might win the punt return job. Wallace, I hope so. Again, wide receiver. It adds to your roster at receiver. You can carry this guy. Maybe you feel your receiver room is full, but you still carry Penny Hart because he's so good at returning punts. It's a great way for one of these guys on the border of a roster to get himself on that 53-man and have an impact on the season and make a career for himself. Make it known to the team that he can do this job, that he can be effective, and he can be an asset for the Falcons. So I'm all for Penny Hart and seeing what he can do. I'm just saying he's never done it before. And again, I emphasize that it's not an easy job. So I want to see him do it and see how he does with it before we go with it. But to me, you got 6 different options to go with as a punt returner. But getting back to Breon Borders, again, reputation as a ball hawk coming out of college, but he hasn't shown that ball hawk ability in 6 seasons in the NFL. Has bounced around from team to team. I think he's been on like a half dozen teams. I don't have it in front of me. But somebody who has barely gotten off of a lot of teams' practice squads before, as much as, actually playing, being on a roster and playing in games. So you're taking a big chance with Breon Borders, and you're taking an even bigger chance now because 2 days ago, word has come out that Breon Borders is going to be suspended for the first 2 games in the NFL season. If he makes the Falcons roster, he is suspended for the first 2 games. No word on why that suspension has been handed down. The only thing I can speculate on is that it has to be a substance abuse issue. 2-game suspensions or any kind of suspension like that usually comes down to substance abuse. There's no record that Breon Borders has had any problem with the law, had any problems off the field. So really, as far as personal conduct, no reason for him to receive a suspension from the NFL. So I expect that Borders has an issue with substance abuse, and now he's going to be out 2 days after the Falcons sign him. Then he is out for the first 2 games of the season. What I find interesting about Breon Borders is the Falcons had signed Jamal Peters out of the Canadian Football League. And Peters is tall, 6'2", has some size to him, has some strength, and led the Canadian Football League in interceptions last season. Now, the Canadian Football League is more of a passing league. You get 3 downs to make 10 yards. It's a little bit more, little bit more freewheeling as far as moving the ball down the field. But as far as reading about Jamal Peters, fans in Toronto love him. And now, Canadian Football League players don't necessarily translate well to the NFL. However, this is a guy who has shown ball hawk abilities. This is a guy who's shown he can cover, and he can cover in difficult situations, can cover in a passing league, and cover on just about any down, because that's what you get in the CFL. You get a lot of passing right up front. So I'm a little bit surprised to see the Falcons cut Peters, because I would have liked to have seen what Peters could do in an NFL uniform. And you still might see Peters get some shots in an NFL uniform going forward. But again, unfortunately, the Falcons decided to let him go, picked up Borders, but Borders is now out. And Wallace Smith chimes in with, probably took some supplement over the counter. Yep, that showed up when he took his drug screening test. Exactly, Wallace. That's what I speculate too. He has to be something like that. And another comment from Wallace, I think they're going to keep Breon on the team to compete for a spot on the roster or practice squad. Yeah, he'll be there. He's going to be there through training camp. He's going to be there through the preseason. But you're looking at Falcons secondary, where you have Alford, Mike Hughes, and Hughes is going to compete for one of those cornerback spots. And my mind has gone blank all of a sudden, real quick. God, Terrell, AJ Terrell. I don't know why his name wouldn't come to me. But as I keep teasing Dave, you get to a certain point, and sometimes the mind maybe isn't as nimble as you would like at certain points. But Terrell is going to be there, and Jeff Okudah. So you do have a fairly full cornerback room. Yes, I know. Larry Orange. Yeah, Borders played one game for the Bears. And, okay, so Atlanta Journal-Constitution did say that Borders was suspended for performance-enhancing substance abuse. So, again, not surprising, because, as I said, there's nothing that came out. And excuse me, but Zozo's been all over the desk here, and you get cat hair floating all over the place. It's a little rough sometimes to try and do a show when Zozo's hanging around. But yeah, so that's what I figured. It had to be performance-enhancing drug issues. Yeah, did play a game for the Bears, spent a large part of the season on the Bears practice squad, and did get into a game with them. But as I say, he's been a journeyman. He's been all over the league. Let me look him up here real quick. So Breon Borders has been in the league since 2017. Came in as a defensive back with Buffalo. Played at Jacksonville, in Washington, Tennessee, Arizona, and then last year spent a majority of the season on Chicago's practice squad, and did get into one game with the Bears. No stats for him last year. So somebody who's been good enough to be on a practice squad has been good enough to be there looking at a roster spot, but hasn't been in a roster spot. My question, guys, is Zozo, thank you very much. My issue, though, guys, is you have a guy who showed what he can do. And granted, Canadian Football League, but he was a star in the Canadian Football League as a cornerback, as a guy who showed that he can He is a ball hawk. Led the league in interceptions. Again, you got a guy who, to me, shows a lot more potential than Breon Borders. All I can say is that Peters must not have impressed during OTAs. So, yeah, Wallace, if it was something real serious, he would have been cut from the team immediately. I agree. If it was personal conduct, yeah, I agree. He would have been cut immediately. That's why I said my speculation was that it was substance abuse. And I do agree. It was probably something over the counter, something that, isn't always an excuse for me. Because in my instance, I always think that, you're a professional athlete. You need to know. You need to be looking at what's in these over-the-counter supplements. If you have an agent, run it by your agent. Run it by somebody. Run it by the team before you take this. If all else fails, run it by the team. If you don't know what you should and shouldn't be taking, pick up your over-the-counter supplement, look at it, make a quick phone call to the team, and see what they say. Will they, they will tell you what is legal, what isn't, and what you can take, what you can't take. So I have a problem excusing athletes of any sport for getting caught on substance abuse violations, because you do have resources. You have resources that you can go to find out what is a good and what is a bad supplement. So it just, and especially when you're a guy who's been on the borderline of rosters in your NFL career. Yeah, exactly, Wallace. That's what I'm saying. That's why they need to check with the team trainer before they take stuff over the counter. You're absolutely right. That's what I'm saying here. Call the team. They will tell you. It's in their interest. Now, I will cut Breon Borders a little slack. He didn't have a team before the Falcons did sign him. This is probably a drug test, probably something he took before he signed, and took a drug test as part of his intake into the league, as part of signing his contract, and got caught with it. So I'll cut Breon Borders a little slack on that. He didn't have a team to call, didn't have a training staff to call. If this had happened like in another week, 2 weeks, yeah, then you could blame him because he didn't call the Falcons training staff and say, should I be taking this? But he didn't have that resource open to him until Monday. So, and then it took 2 days and they found the substance and suspended him 2 games. So I'll cut Breon Borders a little bit of slack. I'm not going to worry about it that much. Still say you got to watch what you're taking. Always have to watch what you're taking with these over-the-counter supplements. And I get players want to take these over-the-counter supplements. They want every edge they can get. They want to be in the league. Breon Borders wants to be on a roster the entire season, wants to contribute to a team. So, yeah, I don't blame him for taking over-the-counter supplements because he's doing that to try and find a way to get that extra edge, to maybe find a way. And you're talking about extra edge among players who are all similar in talent. And that's the thing. It could be the littlest things that cost you a roster spot. And Breon Borders has been cost a few roster spots. He hasn't made a few rosters. So I understand why he's taking supplements. Got to be careful. So I'm going to cut him slack and say, okay, Breon, Now you call the team. Now you have a team you can call. You have a front office you can call and say, is this healthy for me? Or is this going to get me on the suspended list for 2 games? But again, look out for Jamal Peters. I want to see where Peters ends up because I thought Peters, I was happy to see him sign with the Falcons. I thought Peters was a guy with a lot of promise. But again, must not have impressed during OTAs. And that's the reason why the Falcons went out and felt they still needed work in their, with their defensive backs. So rough thing, but it's unfortunate. Again, another bump in the road for the Falcons. Every team has them, but the Falcons have had their share this past week. Want to look at a situation as far as defensive ends, pass rushers. Last week, Frank Clark came off the free agent market with the Broncos paying 1 year's $5.5 million for Frank Clark. I looked at Spot Rack earlier today, and the free agent market for defensive ends is kind of drying up. And with the Falcons, I am not thrilled with what they're going into the season with, what they're going into training camp with so far this season. Is you got Arnold Ebiketie, who's you're hoping makes that jump in the second season. He's got to make a jump in the second season. He was a second-round draft pick. So you really need him to be there. So you got Ebiketie, free agent Bud Dupree, who's solid. Not outstanding, but solid. Linebackers, you got Lorenzo Carter. You signed Caden Ellis, who had an outstanding season for the Saints last year, showed that he can rush from the outside linebacker position. Rookie Zach Harrison's coming in. And, of course, the big free agent signing is Calais Campbell. But you have to look at Calais Campbell, and one of the things I've been bringing up so far this offseason is Calais Campbell is going to be 37 years old at the start of the 2023 season. Calais Campbell is going into his 16th year in the NFL. Calais Campbell is a guy who has been at the top of the game as far as pass rusher. So you're getting somebody who knows how to do it. But I don't think he is not going to be, and I know a lot of people are kind of hoping against hope and crossing their fingers and saying and praying to the football gods and say that, Calais Campbell is going to make an impact for this team next season. My problem is Calais Campbell, again, he's going to be a great third down specialist running rusher, long yardage rusher. I'm not looking for Calais Campbell to make a big impact on the Falcons. He may make impact as far as plays. He's not going to make an impact over the course of a game, being there for you as a pass rusher. Wallace Smith, again, I think the outside linebacker room is good, and we need to give these players a chance to see what they can do. Again, Wallace, I'm not going to argue with you. Yes, they do need to see what they can do. And I think they will be better. Again, they brought back Lorenzo Carter, signed Caden Ellis, which I think is a very flying under the radar signing. I really like that Caden Ellis signing. You got a guy, for one thing, you took him away from the Saints. So you took him away from the rival, which is always a great thing. You take an effective player away from your rival. So, plus to the Falcons on that one. And I do think he's going to add to the Falcons' pressure in the coming season. Great at covering at range as far as outside linebacker. Excellent tackler. And I think is going to bring pressure against the quarterback. I do like Caden Ellis. I still don't think, Walls, I will disagree with you, though. I don't think that room is enough. I don't think they have enough yet. I would like to see someone who's going to be there and has more of a reputation as a pass rusher. And one of the names I've seen that have come up this past week, according to Ian Rappaport, Danielle Hunter from the Minnesota Vikings is on the trade market, which is going to be a bit surprising to me, because Hunter is still a solid outside linebacker, pass rusher, edge rusher. The problem when you're doing this show by yourself for a full hour is you have to talk for the full hour. So I know my voice is getting a little raspy at the moment, but bear with me. Hunter had 10.5 sacks last year, made the Pro Bowl last year. Except for 2021, he has been healthy. Healthy on defense. He missed 9 games in 2021. Other than that, he's played full seasons. So, I'm sorry, he missed 10 games in 2021. I keep forgetting. That was the start of the 17-game season. So, a little rough as far as that goes, but he stays healthy. He's still very good pass rusher. Believe me, again, being a fan of the Bears and seeing Daniel Hunter twice a year with the Vikings and seeing him coming against on defense against the Bears offensive front, guy is still a monster. Guy can still do it. And again, he was 28 last season. He's going to be 29 this year. Still in his prime. All right, he can still do this. It's not a big jump to say that Daniel Hunter is a guy that would be effective if the Falcons decide they want to get in on the trade market with him. The problem is you're going to have to trade for him. So, D. Lawton, you good sir, thank you for your take. I appreciate that, D. Appreciate that a lot. Absolutely. And I thank you for that. So, but, you're going to have to pay him. And you're going to have to pay for him because the Vikings aren't going to release Hunter. Apparently, they want to get out from under his contract, and I'm looking that up right now. We're going to find out what his contract calls for 2023. $14.4 million. So, expires in 2024. Was a 5-year deal. So, but if you want a defensive lineman, you got to pay for him. 2023 base salary of $4.9 million. Bonuses, restructure of this deal. So $13.1 million in 2023. Vikings will not be cutting him. He's got an $18 million dead cap. So it's rough for apparently the Vikings feel that they need room under their cap to take and are willing to deal Daniel Hunter, which again is surprising to me because he's a proven effective outside linebacker. So he's a guy that I think would be an effective pickup for the Falcons. However, again, what are you going to trade to get him? And again, what do you think of the Falcons going into 2023? Do you think this team is a possible playoff contender? Do you think this team has has a chance to go up against his competitors, in the AFC and the NFC South and make an impact. And that's the thing, you have to look at that. Do we feel we can compete? If you feel you can compete, then Daniel Hunter is a guy that I think is worthwhile bringing in. If you think that this is your chance, if you have enough faith in this offense to be, with all the tools they have and with the offensive philosophy that Arthur Smith is using going into this season, do you think this Falcons team is does have a shot at a playoff spot? I think it's possible. I think it's very possible. One of my issues, though, as far as this team making the playoffs is that pass rush. And it has been abysmal for 3 seasons now. Basically, it's been abysmal since the year that the Falcons went to the Super Bowl. So you've got to fix it. And that's what has frustrated me about the Falcons in the draft. You have to fix this somehow. But the Falcons would have to make some adjustments. They've used their salary cap space. So they have $9.7 million approximately cap room. And you got to remember, you got to leave enough cap room at the start of the season because you're going to be signing players to replace injuries as the season goes on. That counts against your cap. So you do need a cap going into the season to be able to make injury signings. So around now, the Falcons are up against it. It's tough to say, but the Falcons are up against it with the cap. But it's a whole lot better than they were last year when they were $160 million dead cap. They're up against it with the cap, but with guys who are going to be contributing to the team in 2023. Not with guys who are nowhere near the sideline like they were in 2022. Paying guys for past performance, paying guys to say bye, goodbye. But, you're now bringing in guys. You have your cap full, but with guys that you expect are going to contribute to this team. So, okay. So Dave, if Hunter is traded, will be a $5.5 million cap hit for his new team. Dave Holcomb. Yeah. So it's good to see Dave. So $5.5 million cap. So the Falcons could take it. Falcons will probably still have to do some cap adjustments. Again, so they have $5.4 million. Okay, Dave, $5.4 million. You're right, because the Vikings would be taking some of that cap room, and I didn't take that into consideration. I need you here, Dave. So that's why Dave is always great to have for me, because he keeps me on the straight and narrow. So the Falcons could do it. It would be an immediate impact for the Falcons coming up in 2023. And I have to see that immediate impact. So I need to see more than going into the season with Ebiketie, an aging Calais Campbell, Bud Dupree, Carter, Caden Ellis, Zach Harrison. I need to see more heading into the season. Unless the Falcons don't think that they're quite a playoff contender yet. But if you listen to Arthur Smith, listen to Terry Fontenot, and see how they're going about their business so far this offseason and so far in OTAs, they do believe they are going to be a playoff squad. They do think that they can break out of the NFC South this next season and be a team that makes an impact. So even with Desmond Ridder at quarterback, but I mentioned last week that Arthur Smith is going to be introducing this offensive philosophy where you don't know where players are going to be necessarily lining up on each play. So Arthur Smith is going into this season with a very interesting philosophy, and I look forward to seeing that. So let's see. So again, Daniel Hunter, I think would be a great pickup for the Falcons. I'm interested to see who they are willing to trade. And I don't think it's going to come down to who. I think it's going to come down to draft picks. But remember, Hunter, you would have him under contract for another year because he would still be under contract for 2024. And at that point, he'd be 30 years old. And you can make a decision on whether you want to bring him back on another maybe 2 or 3 year deal, because I think he's worth it. Again, as a Bears fan, the guy is a monster as a pass rusher. He's a guy you have to account for. And I think the Falcons have a lot of maybes. And yeah, I will agree with Wallace that it's a good room. I don't know if it's a room ready to contribute to a playoff run. I want to see somebody who's done it. Again, kind of like punt return, kind of like what we're getting into with Avery Williams. I want to see somebody who's done it try and take that position. It's rough when you don't have somebody who's done it. Arnold Ebiketie is, I've been hearing, has been showing potential as somebody who can do it. And again, you spent a second-round pick on him. So he better be able to do it. But as far as edge rushers go, I have to see somebody who has done it. And if you're going into the season thinking you're a playoff squad, then I want to see this guy make that kind of impact. Because I think the Falcons are very strong, again, in their secondary. I felt this last year. If the Falcons had a strong secondary. The problem is, I don't care how good your secondary is. They are going to get beat if a quarterback has 4 to 4.5 seconds to get rid of the ball. All right, pressures, I don't care about pressures. I don't care about knockdowns. You know, all these fancy stats they've been coming up with the last few years for defensive players, defensive side of the ball, as far as how well they pressure a quarterback. You know, you can get a quarterback pressure and get credited for a quarterback pressure, but the quarterback still completed a pass 10 yards down the field. You can knock the quarterback down, but if you knock him down after he's already gotten rid of the ball, how effective is that? Yeah, you're putting that thought in his mind that you're coming for him and you can get to him, but you didn't get to him. He still got the pass off. And that's why I'm not impressed with those stats. Negative pass plays means that you sack the quarterback. You put the quarterback, you put their offense back behind the chains, and you're making life difficult for them on the 3rd and 4th down, or 2nd and 3rd downs. You're forcing them to make up yardage. And this is huge. And you can't win without it. So right now, the Falcons are going into 2023 with speculation. And I do think it's possible that this Falcons team has potential. Let's say not possible. They have potential to be good in 2023. If you want to be good and have people looking at you and saying, okay, this is something we have to deal with going into 2023, you take a long, hard look at Daniel Hunter because apparently the Vikings, for some reason, want to deal him. Probably a salary cap reason. But believe me, with Hunter gone, that's going to be rough for them. They've already let Dalvin Cook go. And I want to just talk about that real brief. We only have a few minutes left in the show. I wonder about this philosophy about running backs and how we can always get, you can find running backs in later rounds. Running backs don't make the big difference that they used to. They're not as big of an impact as they used to. I find that I don't agree with it. I find that I have a tough time with that. It seems to be the prevailing wisdom. And sometimes when you get this prevailing wisdom going around, when people start picking up on it, when people start saying, the running back doesn't have that kind of impact. And then all of a sudden you get another person that says it. It steamrolls. And it moves forward. And all of a sudden it becomes this wisdom around the league that, it doesn't matter. I think it does matter. And I think the Vikings are going to find out how difficult it is to move their offense with Dalvin Cook out. And I think it's going to expose Kirk Cousins. Because I think Cousins needs that running back, needs that strong running back. It means that he's not forced to throw as much as he's going to be next year. And he's got receivers, but this is not a good thing for the Vikings. I think the Vikings had a window open to them for making the playoffs and going somewhere in the playoffs. I think they're the ones who are shutting that window on themselves. If you look at running backs who make a difference, Dalvin Cook from Minnesota. If you look at Tennessee, Ryan Tannehill has been an effective quarterback in Tennessee, but he's had the impact runner to help him to be the man, and kind of take some of his the pressure off him with Derrick Henry. And I don't know why I spaced on his name for a second, but okay. Wallace says, I think they're a playoff team this year and they can compete without trading for Hunter. I hope so, Wallace. I've agreed with a lot of what you've had to say so far in this show. I'm not sold. I am just not sold. I hope they do. I hope they are effective. I think they have the players who can be effective. New defensive coordinator. I think this scheme is going to fit them better under Ryan Nielsen. These 4 front linemen and these 4-man fronts that Nielsen's going to be moving in. Is going to be going with the Falcons defense. I like that. So, but again, not as sold. But getting back to Dalvin Cook and running backs, Tannehill's had the benefit of having a game breaker, a game changer with Derrick Henry. Saquon Barkley finally gave a return on investment for the Giants last year. Stayed healthy all season. And showed why the Giants picked him at such a high, with such a high draft pick. Made Daniel Jones look better. Okay, a strong running back, in my opinion, makes your quarterback better because you're not having as much problems. You're making the defense account for something else besides your quarterback's arm. Madison is not going to be an impact rusher for the Vikings next year, Alexander Mattison. And I think the Vikings are doing themselves a disservice. And I think you're going to find a big hole in their offense with Madison as their running back in place of Dalvin Cook. That's all the time we have today. Amazingly enough, we have filled an hour. Isn't that something? I do appreciate all of you who have joined me for the show this Saturday morning. Saturday afternoon for most of you, Eastern time. Again, our show sponsor is Prize Picks. Sign up for Prize Picks. He has a phone app or sign up on your desktop. They will match up to 100% of your first $100 deposit. And there's plenty of options still for to go into player props heading into this season. Use the promo code ASU and show them where you came from and that you support Jackson Pigskins on Saturdays. Support our Atlanta Sports Unlimited channel and give a like to Atlanta Sports Unlimited. We're always putting new content out, and got a lot of great content creators on the site. So subscribe to the channel. And if you want to talk more football with me and talk with me during the week or get in touch with me at any time, I do monitor my Twitter pretty closely at TJ Pollen. So I would love to have everybody throw their thoughts at me during the week. I am open. I love talking football. I'm here. So, okay. Wallace says Dell's probably going to play at one of the MLB spots. Could be. I think he's going to be moved around a lot. And he showed that he is capable of getting to the quarterback. Showed that last year. But we will see as training camp goes. So that's all the time we have. Again, sign up for Prize Picks. The Prize Picks for this week, my Falcons pick, Bijan Robinson, they have at 1,075.5 yards, above or below. So take a look. It's always interesting to go on the site and see what they have, what they're offering for that particular week, and what they're offering for the upcoming NFL season. And again, I do appreciate all of you. I appreciate you staying, being with the show today. And I look forward to talking to you next week. Have a great week, everyone.